Whakatawa, puti tua, puti waho. Whakau te raka wa maere, nuku wa maere, raki wa maere, te maro whenua ai. I ruka tāne, i raro tāne. Whakapaku o tāne, te raki, ihi o tāne, te hoaka o te araki. O atu e tāne kiuta. Tō te rewhiti whakamaua kia tīna. Aumi e, hui e, tāi ki e. Watariki whetu here kai. Ko tēnei te wā, Wātera wiki, ko tēnei te wā, ka puta mai a Matariki i te paitapu. Ka tirohia Matariki ka puta me puaka hoki, ko tēnei te wā o te kai. Matariki here kai, mauria mai kai, mō wai, te whakanui i te hāpore, mō wai, te whakanui i te whānau, mō wai, whakanui e a rātou, kua hipa, kua haere i te tau, kua hipa. Nā reira, ko tēnei te wā o Matariki te whakarohia i a rātou mā, ko wahi atu ki te pō, koutou, haere, haere, moi mai rā, o ki oki mai. Rātou kia rātou, rātou kia tātou. Nō reira tēnā koutou, e tēnā tata katoa, nei anō te mihi kia koutou. A kia koutou, no te hāpore, nau mai, hoki mai, wainui e tātou, mo tēnei hui mo te kaunera tāia o ki Waitaha. Koutou, ngā akonga o te EOD, Institute of Directors, haramai wainui a tātou, matakitaki i a mātou mo te mahi tika, mo te mahi he, mo te mahi akonga hoki. Nā reira, tēnā koutou. Kia ora, welcome everyone. Welcome here to our council here for Environment Canterbury, Council meeting for Environment Canterbury. Just acknowledging Matariki. Ko te kaupapa o tēnei tau, the theme this year is Matariki here kai. Just means coming together, bringing food. When you bring food together, what happens? It brings the community, brings the whānau families together. And also at that time, we also celebrate the ones who have passed on. One thing about Matariki and Puaka is acknowledging those who have passed in the last year, acknowledging them, and also looking forward at the plans ahead. And for some in this room, some of those plans will be doing the Institute of Directors course. So it's good to have some directors here and future directors watching what is good governance. Watching probably is something to learn from. And also you being here today will make sure that we practice good governance today. Nā reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tata katoa. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe, Councillor Cranwell, mō tō Mihi, mō tō Karakia, e whakatūpera nei o tātou nei hui, tēnā koe e hoa. Ai, kia koutou katoa, nau mai hara mai, ki tēnei hui o tātou. It's the 580th Council meeting of Environment Canterbury Regional Council. So welcome here, thank you, Jan, for your words and reminding us about this time of the year with Matariki and telling us a little bit about the theme for the year, Matariki here kai. So thank you. Welcome to our manuhiri from the community that are here today, from the media and also from the Institute Directors. Welcome again. So we've got a quorum, which is good. We'll get the apologies in a minute, but I declare the meeting open. We've just got a bit of a change in order to business, which we'll deal with after we do the notice of motion stuff. But it's just about a supplementary agenda item, but we'll get to that soon. And also items, we've got items in our public excluded agenda as well that will be taken after the lunch break. Because we've got external people coming in for that, so we'll deal with that then. In terms of apologies, I think we've got Councillor Diche and Councillor Robinson maybe joining online at some point. They're not here yet, but we'll take that as lateness. And also Councillor Southworth is at a conference, I think in Wellington, so she'll be on if she can after her presentation's finished. Good to see you. Thank you for being able to make it as well. So yeah, just note Councillor Southworth, Diche and Robinson for lateness. All good. Conflicts of interest. I don't think I've received any for items on today's agenda, but has anyone got any? if you've got them for certain items, you can raise them then as well. Public forums, we've got no public forums or deputations today. We've got no extraordinary or urgent business. And we've got no notices of motions that have been raised. So just got to go to the supplementary item. So I don't know if people have received this. Hopefully you have. I'm pretty sure you have. And it's just 8.9, which is a resolution to include supplementary report, which is coming up on your screen there. And I just need it, or I'll move it. Have we got a second to this? Yeah, clear. Thank you, Councillor Mackay. That we receive and consider the report Chief Executive end of term review at Council on Wednesday, 19th of June. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Well, thank you. That's carried. So we'll move to our minutes, which is 7.1, and that's page 7 in your agendas. And we've got a few minutes here. We've got the 7th of May and the 22nd and 23rd of May. And also just to note that we've just got an updated attachment for the minutes for the 22nd and 23rd of May. There was just an error that we noticed yesterday in that about one of the resolutions, and everyone, if you read through them, you'll note that there was quite a lot of resolutions for that meeting. That was our long-term plan deliberations, and actually they're summarised. All the resolutions are summarised at the back of those minutes on page. Sorry, I'm just finding that bit. I think it's from page 24 onwards. It's got all the motions that we passed that day, and there was quite a few of them. 18 in number, but with a couple of sub ones as well. So sometimes we do get mixed up. So the one that in particular that we've updated was on page. Sorry, let me find it. On page 6, it would have appeared on page 6, and also in the summary at page 16, and that was around the environmental regulation and protection 5 and 5.1, and in particular it was 5.1 that we just got around the wrong way. There was 2 options that day, and the wrong one was printed in the minutes that went out. So that's now been rectified online, and you've got that in front of you. So unless there's any questions about the minutes for the 7th and then the 22nd and 23rd of May, is there any questions? No. Can I have a mover for the resolution? Yeah, Councillor Burns and Councillor Ward. And that's that we confirm the minutes from the council meetings held on the 7th of May and the 22nd and 23rd of May 2024. Any discussion? All good. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks for that. So we're going to move on to report items 8.1, and that's on page 47. And that's our resolution status report. And I think, David, you're coming to the table, and I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Tēnā tēnā koutou katoa, ngā kaikauri hira, I te tiamana, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Thank you. I'll take the report as read and happy to take any questions for clarification.
Thank you, David. Councillor Edge.
Thanks, David. I was just going to get some clarification on page 68 on the formation of the or the report on the urban waterways. This joint working group with City Council. I understand that it's up to this council to activate that. Is that correct?
My understanding is the committee was a committee of the Christchurch City Council, and I guess the action is really for yourselves as councillors to follow up with your city counterparts as to where the status of that re-establishing that committee is at.
Yep, Peter.
I think that may have got lost with me.
Cool. Well, we can pick that up, Grant, if you're happy with that. I can work on that. Yeah, Theo.
I just wanted to add there that the Urban Waterways Partnership is about to be re-established, which is a partnership of a lot of community groups, the City Council and ECAT as well. So maybe we'll point ourselves to that. So I think that would be probably the most appropriate vehicle to do what we've got to do.
Thanks, Theo. I remember when we did that last term as well. So thank you. Claire.
Through you, Chair, I'd just like to inquire from the same page, 68. The with regard to the in progress recommendation around the changes of this, our plan changes in response to the our decision. And some of the dates there, of course, have been for notification and funding from the 23 year to an update.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Mihi. Andrew, be able to provide an update on that. Andrew.
For the councillors and through you, Mr. Chair. We have continued to work on progressing the what we're now calling the take and use change to address those issues that came up through the AWA and Cloud Ocean Supreme Court decision. Through your LTP deliberations, you talked about the efficiencies of adding together a number of planning processes that reduce some of the fixed costs about going through a hearing. Was around about $500,000 saving that you made through doing that. But the consequence of that was a delay in that work. To bring you up to speed, firstly on the progress we've made around the take and use change, and secondly, to inform you of, I guess, a slower process because we've had less time around making constructed wetlands easier to develop and exploring what it means with the removal of some of the intensification restrictions around the NESF. We've got a briefing planned for the 3rd of July to talk to you about that. And we're on track to have engagement with the wider, well, with interested parties on these changes in September.
Thanks, Andrew. Is that all good, clear? Thank you. Peter, do you have a follow-up maybe?
And just Andy, just in terms of constructed wetlands, is some of that we're looking at prescription of plantings and things like that?
No, but let's talk about that on the 3rd of July. What we've actually been looking at is ensuring that we have the right sort of ingredients in place for farmers to be able to develop wetlands.
Chair, just a secondary question. My understanding from one of the issues that was getting in the road of actually getting wetlands put in place was the prescription in terms of the NEWA guys for planting. The fact that you could do this plantings that were required. So if we could look at that, it would be great.
Absolutely.
Councillor Kinsey.
Mr. Chair, just in response to Councillor Scott's comments about the NEWA recommendations, is the NEWA was best practice. It was ECAM's interpretation of best practice that caused the problem because they made it compulsory, not the guidelines.
Thank you. Yep, that sounds good. We can discuss that at the next briefing. All right, no other questions for Andrew? All good. And give on. Any other questions about 8.1? No, all good. Thanks, David. So we've got the resolution there, which notes the status of previous resolution provided to the Council Resolution Status Report for June 2024. So the mover, Councillor Cranwell. Seconder, Councillor Mihi. Thank you. Any discussion? No, all those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. So we're going to go to 8.2. That's on page 69, and that's previous committee activity and minutes. Now we've got a bunch here. So we've got the Audit, Finance and Risk Committee, which is chaired by Councillor Edge. That's on page 71. We've got the Canterbury Regional Transport Committee, and that's at the moment chaired by Councillor Edge as well. It's on page 87. We've got the Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee, which we've got John Sunkel here, who represents us there, on page 94. And then we've got our Biodiversity and Biosecurity Committee minutes in there as well, because that committee's had its last meeting. So we're bringing the minutes here for ratification, because there won't be another meeting with that at the moment. So I don't know, Grant, you wanted to speak to any of the minutes? You don't have to, but over to you if you wanted to.
Yeah, just briefly, really, the resolution proposed at the time were all adopted. In particular, 8.9, the risk management update. Pretty much the strategic stuff, the risks, and the state of progress is all pretty much on track. And we did note here, just within secretarial note, it was noted that the risk of another pandemic should be highlighted in the council's policies around remote working, and technological capabilities be reviewed in case of a need for sustained remote work as a strategy. So the risk issues are probably going to be, or will need to be updated. It's a dynamic space at the moment, so that's something that we'll be looking at going forward.
Right, is there any questions on the AFRC? Yep, Theo.
So I just had a question on, it was 8.7, the insurance review. I can't quite see what page number it is on the agenda. 79, usually. Covered up with 2. Grant, it was brought out of heads, and the note there talks about the qualified cover. What did that? Is there any risk around insurance in that space, or that we are unaware of? Or I was just a little bit unsure about what that.
There was a list prepared in the agenda papers. I haven't got that on me, but it's a fairly standard risk for those. Although we are aware, of course, now the issue of ongoing insurance in some things. Professional benefit, public liability insurance through LINZ being proposing to withdraw from local government insurance. But I think that's an issue that we will take up.
After this, maybe, yeah.
Endorsing the level of insurances that we have in place.
Any other questions on that one? If not, we'll move to the Regional Transport Committee. Grant, if you want to give us an overview of that. That's on page 87, I think.
The 30th of May meeting held in Ashburton. Probably the two key issues from that meeting were 8.2, which is a variation to the regional land transport plan. And that was from New Zealand Transport Authority, and there was a second variation proposed by second variation from the Christchurch City Council to that plan as well. Now they are in.
Going to deal with that later in the meeting, aren't we? Question button.
Both in terms of description of and the reasoning behind that, and we'll get staff to explain what's going on. A couple of issues that did come up at that meeting that we're following up on was preparing a letter to government or appropriate minister about driver's licensing procedures within Canterbury and across the whole of New Zealand. So a letter's been drafted to go from the committee to seek some government action on improving the ability of people to get a driver's license, which is banking. The whole process is banked up quite a lot.
Grant, any questions for Grant on that? No, all good. We might move to the CDM stuff, John, if you want to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This meeting was held in Ashburton. Of note was a conversation around the recovery plan update and work to further improve our ability to recover once we've got through that response phase. And there's been an ongoing conversation about setting up a bit of a technical advisory panel on those matters with expertise, a bit of tension amongst mayors and others as to who might be in control. Those issues have been resolved, and we will be looking to set up a panel that may be available if the need arises on those significant events to provide advice to territorial authorities of this region or others in those processes. Within the NEMA updates, we had a good conversation about that is the CDM and Property Mayoral Forum expectation of what our conversations would look like with central government in the rewriting of the new Act, and our wish to be in the early part of the conversation and test the thinking. We did not want to get into the space that we were in a previous rewrite of the bill where we were having online arguments with ministers and the like. So very clear in that conversation. And we also had a conversation as to what we might discuss with Minister Mitchell when he was in this building last week with the Mayoral Forum looking at those matters. So good piece of work continuing, and some work has flowed out of that meeting and the subsequent meetings with the Minister and conversations.
Got any questions, John, on that? Yep, Peter.
Yeah, just on just a general comment on where we are nationally trying to get a national approach to the CDM thing. I mean, we've talked for a long time about having units within regions that can do work and utilising things in a different way. Are we any further down the track?
Post the North Island weather event, Gabrielle, there's been a significant piece of work done by DPMC looking at the review that fell out of that, and a work plan or a possible work plan as to how we might further develop civil defence or NEMA nationally and how we will integrate. The SIG, which are the regional controllers, the 13 of them have put a submission back to NEMA and to DPMC and what they saw or believed was correct or whatever. So there's a piece of work of bringing that together, and that will further inform the changes to the new Act. Root Whenua, which was an exercise held last week based on AF8, was a national exercise. There's a follow-up again in Wellington next Wednesday where we will look at other challenges and how again we further look at a wide umbrella, a broader umbrella, both nationally, regionally and locally to ensure that we have those processes in place. So I think a really good piece of pieces of work happening to uplift NEMA civil defence.
I'd note that the Act that was going to uplift some of these things was before was put before I think I might be wrong on this, by Karen McAnulty last term. Is that going to be repealed, or is there a new Act that will be in place?
That bill has been stopped and a new one will be written, and I think in place in 2025. So that's the piece of work we're on. There was an expectation that new Act, the NEMA Act, would be transformational. It was not, and seeing what has fallen out of, I guess, the events across the country of the last bit, and in particular Gabrielle and the North Island events, we will be seeking a more approach to how we govern. And the basic premise is that civil defence does start at the bottom, from the ground up, on the riverbank or the street corner in your community. But how do we fund it, and how do we have those processes in place at the top to fund but have it driven from the bottom?
I'm not trying to use up time here, I'm afraid. But one of the points that we've noted is that when we do get in the field, it gets centralised within urban communities in terms of response. And we've got such a big rural community, open country, and up an AFA or something like that. How do you get all those two communities together in terms of their response?
That is one of our challenges, and that is the reason I've been asked to go to Wellington, is to take that regional rural view. The strength of the urban voice at times does pull things back into the centre, and so I guess euphemistically, the event was an AF8 and it's centred on Queenstown. I don't want resources travelling between here or Invercargill to Queenstown and bypassing or driving past our rural communities. the real driver of how we inform those communities is to have really good connections, really good conversations. The folk that are at the top of the Ashburton Lakes or wherever do not probably need our resources in the immediacy, but we need to be aware of their challenges. So it's a really good conversation as to how we connect with our rural communities, ensure that they are connected and that they don't get disregarded or forgotten. So that will be part of the conversation, and some of those matters that I will take if the opportunity arises to speak.
Thank you, John, and just acknowledge your work you do in this space. Very knowledgeable, and you've done, going up to Wellington next week to represent us and our communities as well. So thank you for that. The last one on page 101. Oh, sorry, Emma, do you have a question? Sorry.
A more comment there, or it could be a question. I know that both the CEM and the Transport Committee met in Ashburton. Is this a new shift to the centre of the universe? And is it something we could expand on and perhaps shift this council down to the new award-winning council buildings in Ashburton?
So, say last month, please.
I think we learned those, so we're safe here.
In particular, I love the carpet in the council chamber and the Poe on the back wall of near Parker. So it's pretty cool place. So the last minutes there is the Biodiversity and Biosecurity Committee meeting held on the 5th of June. Like I said, this one today we are confirming these minutes, whereas the other ones we're just noting because they'll go to their own committees in the future. This one we don't have another committee meeting planned for this, so that's why we're bringing it here. So in that meeting, we had an update on the biodiversity strategy revitalisation milestones and timeframes. That was the major piece of work that we discussed at that meeting. And so the councillors are aware of that in terms of the work we're doing around our biodiversity strategy from 2008 and trying to bring it up to speed, in particular aligning with the National Policy Statement for Indigenous Biodiversity. So that's sort of where we're at and the work we're doing with partners and stakeholders to take that forward. So unless there's any questions, yeah, Greg? You can say a comment now if you want.
Ko tēnei te wā ka kōrero au. Just to reflect on Councillor Cranwell's opening, and welcome to all of the visitors here, especially the ones from the Institute of Directors. What you will see here, probably first lesson is, it is a forum and a really good opportunity to bring things in, and good that Councillor Cranwell acknowledged matariki, which is very important. This particular piece here brings a bit that's dear to my heart. I'd just like to acknowledge the work of the chair of that now defunct committee, Councillor Pauling, and getting a time frame which represents speed, not haste, as far as the review or revitalisation of the regional biodiversity strategy, a very key piece of how we operate here in Canterbury. I will just say the reason why I believe that's so important is when you look at the state of New Zealand's environment, it paints a pretty bleak picture on the loss of native ecosystems, plants, animals that live within those. Interestingly enough, almost 2/3 of the real ecosystems are threatened by collapse. That's according to Environment Aotearoa 2019. Nowhere is the loss of biodiversity more pronounced than in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We have the highest proportion of threatened indigenous species in the world. That includes 90% of all seabirds, 84% of reptiles, 76% of freshwater fish, and 74% of terrestrial birds. So I just again would acknowledge more speed, less haste, and well done.
Greg, thank you. Acknowledge Nick as well as the deputy of the committee as well. Doing some good work and the work that you did previously too, Greg. So we've got some resolutions here. So we've got number 1, which is noting the minutes from those previous committees. So Audit, Finance and Risk, the Transport Committee, and the Civil Defence Emergency Management Group. And then 2, confirming the following minutes and the unconfirmed minutes from the Biodiversity and Biosecurity Committee. Any one would like to move that? Councillor Ward, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Edge. Any discussion? I think we've had a pretty good go at it. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Carried. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, we're moving on to 8.3, which is a request by Environmental Protection Authority for the Far North Solar Farm consent form. So I think we've got Stephen and Aurora coming to the table. Thank you. So noting that this is a retrospective thing, we've had a session as a council on this with a staff advice, and that's gone to the EPA, but hand it over to you, Stephen and Aurora.
Thank you, Chair. I suggest that we take the item as read and answer any questions if you are comfortable with that. Just one small update. The EPA has responded to our letter that we sent them, and their advice is that to the Minister, and this is in the public arena, is that they don't grant this here being transferred to the EPA, and they wait until the fast track legislation comes through. So that's their advice to the Minister. In the meantime, the application in terms of Environment Canterbury is on hold. So I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Cool, thank you. Peter.
Yeah, excuse me. Look, I note, Stephen and Aurora, that the reason for asking for this type of consent to be pulled in was the fact that it is something that we don't necessarily deal with on a daily basis, therefore we face sometimes. And I would note that this application is for quite a large area in a ecosystem that is fragile, to say the least. This probably, yeah, I don't know if with you, but given that advice, the fact that we should wait fast track and see who comes through, and then is the decision being that we could still go back and ask for them to pull this in? Because my feel on this is that the reasoning why you would ask for these consents to be taken essentially is that some of these things like solar farms are developed. We don't get through those every day. There's a level of expertise required in terms of looking at those. We're not sure of what the cost implications would be, therefore we're not sure what the implications on our ratepayers would be, so therefore it's a burden that we may be taking on that's beyond us to be able to handle that financially and also with staff. You may not be able to answer that, but that's my
I won't answer it all because that is definitely political, but through the chair, you will remember our advice talks about what the national significance criteria are, and they are some of the matters that you raise, Scott, here, including national direction around solar farms generally, impact on very unique ecosystems and landscapes, and the scale of potential in terms of solar electricity or at their own New Zealand.
And I think my recollection of it is that the applicants themselves asked for it to be considered for a call, not us. We just then got asked our advice from the EPA on that matter, and that's what we provided to the EPA. Ian, and then Bill.
Yeah, thank Craig and Chair Craig, and you touched on what I wanted was clarification of the process. They asked to go to the EPA, we supported that. EPA have now said to government, go for fast track. So presumably it's in the hands of the applicants as to whether they wait for the fast track or they proceed with going for EPA. So can you clarify that?
So my understanding, Aurora will no doubt answer this, but is that it's actually in the hands of the Minister. Yeah, the applicant could choose to continue with the consenting process via ourselves and the Mackenzie District Council if they chose to, but the advice from the EPA is to the Minister, so the Minister will decide whether or not they take the advice of the EPA.
Thank you. Good answer as well. I'll go down and then come back to you, please.
Yeah, a lot of the questions that I had aren't relevant anymore given that the update goes. But one thing that sparked my mind in this space is that if it goes down the fast track state process, does that even give less input from us in terms of that consent process? Is that what I'm in my understanding of how that works?
Short answer to that is that we don't know what the final process looks like. It's still going through select committees, I understand it. The process that has been proposed would be quite different to what we have in the full process. So, but we don't know what that looks like yet.
Thanks, Dion. I'll go, Joe.
In terms of the Mackenzie District Council's view that this application is of national significance, is this also expressed in writing?
Sorry, from the Mackenzie District Council. Yeah, there you go.
I believe that they put forward similar views to what we did. The EPA has actually agreed with our analysis that it is an application of national significance, but because of the pending fast track pathway, their advice is that that the minister should wait until that avenue is available. So, in short, yes, but there is more context behind it.
And Peter?
I think I just want to register my concern on this, the fact that it's going to be taken out of our hands and it's in our region, and it could set precedent. You know, can we fast track everything? Fast track another 100 solar farms across Canterbury. You know, I mean this is something that's to do with us. I think some sort of regulation needs to be very similar.
Yeah, Councillor Ward.
I just want to agree with what Peter said. If you think about 760,000 solar panels, and you've got 20 panels on everyone's house, that's 38,000 houses. You know, that's going to have our generator impact on the fragile environment.
I think we're getting into a bit of a debate around this, aren't we? Just realise that. So I think obviously our recommendation here is to approve what we did to the EPA, and I think that's quite an important point to make. And when we did consider this, that was quite important to it in terms of the process that is available to the EPA, in terms of calling in and the board of inquiry, etc. Whereas the fast track is completely different, like we've noted, and so Councillor Swiggs, Councillor Scott and Councillor Ward have noted that concern, and I share them as well. But that's not the decision we've got in front of us, so let's get to that, but happy for you to make your comments when we do the debate on this motion. So Dion, you happy to move it? Cool. And Councillor Davies, happy to second it. Do you want to speak to it now?
Yeah, I was going to say similar things in the debate. I mean, I think this is a classic example of let the lolly scramble of fast track begin. And as Aurora said, we don't know what that looks like, and I think a lot of places and a lot of things we don't know what's going to look like. I think on one hand, yeah, there's economic opportunities in this, but there's also a lot of uncertainty. And when I do look at that, all those people who are against this proposal, I sort of sometimes wonder whether fast track is just another way to try and circumvent people who are in opposition to some things that are going on. So I am concerned about this, and as Councillor Scott said, I also have some red flags around people wanting to do things and now sort of seeing a different way of doing it. But at the same time, we do have to get on and get things done in this country as well. So hopefully the fast track legislation does create better controls in terms of the decision making, and also looks at local and regional knowledge as well, because that's really important. But yeah, just wanted to signal my concerns about that fast track views, but it sort of stumped me a little bit with all the other questions that I had, which will still come in. Thanks for the update.
You can step back to the table if you wish, but if there's any more questions. Councillor Davies, you want to speak now?
Yeah, I'd just like to know, this puts us in quite an interesting position, and whereby these retrospective decisions, and we have pending legislation and a retrospective decision,
and the disposition may actually strengthen the notion of this application having national significance. So this is just an interesting example of regional governance being, again, in the middle of national legislation, and we're making decisions that kind of been made in the past. It's an interesting case study for us as regional governance.
Joe, Peter?
I mean, there's unintended consequences here, which I'm not sure about, and I think all I'm saying is that, and you know, we note that the minister was here last week, and we did speak to him about the fast track consent bill, and our submission to that, saying some of the processes in there are quite short, and people don't get the opportunity to actually interact with that, and that's my point. My point is that, you know, in this instance, we just sit on the sideline and watch. I don't think that we should. I mean, that's a personal opinion, not a council opinion. It's a personal.
Thank you, Peter. Greg?
Kia ora, thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, I was at the Environmental Defence Society conference Te Pai, Christchurch last week, where one of the sessions was a sit-down between Gary Taylor of the EDS and Shane Jones, and very enlightening. In fact, I walked away from it thinking I'm boxing in the wrong team. I guess compulsive in his, conclusive in his argument was Minister Jones, but at the risk of being called shrill, I too have many concerns about what that may mean. But he did speak, which was one thing that gave me some hope, of the need for national spatial planning, which would involve the likes of energy and other bits and pieces. So rather than we need one of those in our district or our town or whatever it may be, having a look at more about a current and future needs-based type setup. So one can only hope that the Select Committee and certainly quite a significant outpouring of concerns voiced by quite an eclectic coverage of citizens in New Zealand, that we end up with something that does not cause great harm to the environment.
Thanks, Greg. Anyone else wish to speak to this? It looked like it. Yeah, I think it's raised a really important discussion here, because obviously when we put our advice in, we were clear that we had the Board of Inquiry or the Environment Court sitting at the end of this, which we've had experience with before, and there's good clarity around that. Now with the information we've got today, of course, around the fast track, which we don't know what it looks like yet, you know, that's a bit of a worry. But I also note that in our submission to the EPA, we did, or in our letter to the EPA, we did say that we do have the capacity to do it if we needed to, although those matters of national significance are there, so that it is appropriate for it to be called in using those processes that are there with the Board of Inquiry and the Environment Court. So I'm sure this is not the end of this one. We will hear about it again, and we probably should follow up on that now that we've heard that other information. But in terms of the resolution we've got on the table, I think we support what we wrote then, and that's what we're looking at here, and we probably will hear about this again. So if you don't want to speak again, Councillor Swiggs, you're happy to put it to the vote? Okay. Did you want to speak? No.
I just think that there's a wonderful word in the English language which is called retrospective. And it's been used a number of times, you know, particularly with Māori and also compliance with council bylaws and all of that. And what we're doing here is actually it's a retrospective kind of decision. I think, and we don't know what this fast track bill is actually going to look like. We've got a pretty good feeling, I think, around it. I mean, it's like the conversation we had last week, is that at the moment in the parliamentary process, you actually do have those sort of fallback areas, like with something like this, you have select committees,
you have the ability to submit and all of that. Whereas this here is what we're wondering, and if it does go ahead, do we actually get any kind of input into this sort of decision? I personally think that we should be supporting this, and actually, at least we're sitting there kind of at the table in preparation for whatever it's actually going to go, which way it's going to go. It's almost having a bob each way in some ways. Sort of. We still might be involved, I'm sure. So we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Any abstentions? Carried. Thank you. So we'll go to 8.4, and that's on page 121. And this is the endorsement around submissions again, but retrospectively. So again, to the point there, but that's because we get these crazy timeframes from national direction that we have to respond to before we have the chance to have a council meeting. So that's why we have to do these like this. So we've got a couple of submissions here, and I think Emma, you coming to speak? Thank you.
Good morning, councillors, and through you, Mr. Chair. As the Chair said, the purpose of this paper is to seek council's retrospective endorsement of two submissions that we have lodged recently on two government consultations. They were, because of the timing of the council meetings and particularly the very short timeframes, they've been signed under the delegation of the Chair. So the two submissions was one, firstly to the Climate Change Commission regarding consultations on the 2050 emissions reduction target and the fourth emissions budget. And the second submission that was lodged last week was on the RM amendment bill, and that was to extend the duration of coastal permits in marine farms. Both the submissions are attached to the paper. So I will happily take questions.
Well, thank you. And I note that we had pretty good processes with these internally. We had staff coming to us to talk to them, especially on the first one. The second one was more of an internal process where it went around councillors. Councillors were able to provide feedback on the draft. Those comments were taken into account and then finalised with those, noting how those comments were taken into account and then signed off. So pretty good internal processes. You got a question, Greg? Yep.
Kia thanks, Mr. Chair, and I'm really glad that you identified the reason for these retrospective approvals. It's the fact that there is such a short time frame available before it's being endorsed by council and going out. So my question, Emma, is can you give us an example of some sort of timing between receiving something from the Crown and then having to get it in?
It does vary by consultation, so you'll be familiar that particularly some of the significant legislation like the fast track consenting bill and the currently the RM amendment bill, those do allow a longer time period for us to prepare a submission on. The one on the extension of the coastal marine, so that actually was, that one was, as noted in the paper, submissions were called for on the 7th of June, and then nearly just a week later, consultation closed.
Thank you. I think that's really important to highlight that.
Thank you. Dion, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just was going to ask again, through the short time frame, and we've obviously put this in now. Do you get feedback from other regional councils or councils around the place about their views of their submissions and how that looks aligned with what we're saying or not saying?
Absolutely. So through our networks, through Taipura and Kahika, we have a look at what other regional councils' perspectives are, and also our partners. So yeah, we certainly take a look at the views and the positions of other organisations.
Yeah, Dion.
So a lot of that stuff will happen, or their views will be going in at the same time that our views, given the short time frame is going to happen at the time. So this would be quite useful to have a look at those as well, even from our point of view, because I don't, because there is such a short time frame with the bang, 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 sometimes feel like we're in a void in our own little echo chamber. Sometimes would like to, councillor, I'd like to sort of understand if we're in the same space as what others are saying. Because a lot of these things I really don't know. It's just something that I've been sort of bugging me about this process right now. Thanks, Neil. Any other questions? All good, thanks, Emma. So we've got a couple of resolutions here. We'll bring them up. Thanks, Liz. So that's first one is approving retrospectively the submission on the climate change regarding the 2050 emissions target report. Right, read that all out. That's 8.4.1, and then approving the submission on the primary production committee's resource management extended duration permit from Marine Farms bill. So do I have a mover? Councillor Swiggs, thank you. Seconder? Anybody? Councillor Ward, thank you. Any discussion? Other than what's already been.
I mean, just with what I said, I also just want to say thanks to the staff who have put a good process forward under the circumstances to get things done. I think it's, as far as my gripes go in this, you are doing as much as you can, so it's important for that to be done. And again, I just would love us to keep noting in our submissions that these time frames are typical for us to go through, because we've got statutory processes that we have to follow as well, which isn't quick. So it's a real compliment.
Noted with Minister Bishop that we did 22 submissions last year or something. So that was noted. But Councillor Wood, do you want to speak at this point? Okay, go to Councillor David.
Thank you. I'm just noting that when these submissions were discussed at an earlier point, I expressed my opposition to number one. So if we're going to take these together, I interest in my opposition.
Thank you, Councillor Reach. Councillor Reach.
Yeah, I acknowledge too that really tight time frame to turn these things around and stuff done well with this together. I suppose I'm just looking at item 23 on page 128 about agricultural emissions. It's a very a technological some comments there about methane inhibitors and stuff like that. I suppose, and I appreciate it given the time, but exploring other comments to the government about land use change, climate change, and those sort of things that actually could result in a different approach and a faster approach rather than waiting on some of the other things. But the message to the government is basically take the advice of the Commission and get to the 2050 target.
I'm happy for you, Councillor East. Councillor Swigg, Councillor, are you happy to we take it separately? Yep. And you would move and second both of them separately? That'll good. So can we do that? Thing? All good. And so we'll take the first one there to the vote. Moved by Councillor Swiggs and seconded by Councillor Ward. So all those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Yep. You want that noted, Councillor East? Thank you. And we'll take the second one now. So moved by Councillor Swiggs and seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. Good. So we're going to move on to 8.5. And this is the Memorandum of Understanding with Lincoln University, Te Whare Wānaka or Aoraki. A fine university indeed. Might have happened to go there. No, all good, and a few others around the table too. So it's great that we're here, and I've got Dr. Tim Davies to speak to this. So,
Kia ora koutou, councillors. I'm very pleased to be able to bring this MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, to you for approval that it will be signed at a later date, and I'll come back to that in a minute. The Memorandum of Understanding, as it's set out in the paper, is a framework for future collaboration between Environment Canterbury and Lincoln University. It actually stems from a submission in the 2021
long-term plan from Lincoln University. And we have been developing it and pleased to be able to bring it now. I do particularly want to thank Councillor Sunkel and acknowledge Councillor Sunkel for the work that he has done in working with senior people at Lincoln University and bringing it to their attention to bring it through. So that's been very good. The Memorandum of Understanding sets out areas to work together. It talks about research project co-creation, supporting student work and collaborative support for student projects at different levels, and student internships. There are, in section 3.6 of the memorandum, there are example topic areas that have been identified, but it is not limited to those areas that can be extended at any time. That's on page 139 of your agenda. If this is accepted today and approved, then we will be setting up an appropriate date, and we are working on that already and planning for it to be in the near future a signing date, which would be a more official ceremony. So, good.
Thank you. And thanks for the acknowledgement of Councillor Sunkel. Support that as well. So thank you, John. Are there any other questions for Tim at the moment? Yeah. Peter?
Yeah, Tim, thanks for this good piece of work. I remember when we got this going, it was good to get here. It's a big thing. Just in recognition also of the MOU we have with AEC, there are some things that we have to work on pretty hard with each other actually to get some of these things done. They just don't occur. And so have you got that planned? Have you got what you might want to do next planned? As how we actually progress that, because I think just working with Cheryl, you've got to keep at it. Both her and Grant are both good people, and be able to actually get something concrete.
Through you, Chair. Kia ora, Councillor, for the question, and you'll note in the second point of the Memorandum of Understanding that in terms of oversight, there is an oversight group that will be created, and that is directly to work immediately on implementing the MOU. And I had a reflection on the University of Canterbury one that wasn't there, and I think this will give a better structure to be able to really start thinking of what is it that we'll be working on. We can do that immediately.
Well, thanks, Peter. No.
As an alumni, if I can be called that, because I went there when it was called Lincoln College. But I just, in engagement significance, look, I think this is a great piece of work here to start. I just wanted to ensure that I note number 12 is saying around Lincoln Kellan District Council, reasons why it didn't do a kind of a combined one. And with Papua Runa, and I would think that the reason behind this is because there's already a very, very strong relationship actually with Naitahu, and then also through Papua Runa. I just think of the work that Reverend Morris Bray and all them did, and our head and knee Mātunga is actually continues with that work. So are we saying once we actually have this in place, that means also the link there would be through Rotorua as well, being it's actually part of this organisation and actually the established Māori organisation within Lincoln University. That be?
Yes, that is correct. That's certainly the intention, is to keep those links strong through both of the institutions, and the people that you named, particularly Hirani, is key to that.
Thanks, Nick. Greg, you got a question?
Yeah, I have. I've got a bit of a pre-ramble before. I'm just looking at page 3 of the MOU. It's interesting you should talk about Lincoln College. I can remember it at one time fondly known as Selwyn Polytechnic.
That was a long time.
Yeah. My question on 3.6 talks about an example topic area of interest to both parties, and again, given that I was at the EDS conference last week and the CE of Fonterra said that we have reached, quote, peak dairy, I'm just wondering if you could throw de-intensification and land use change as a possible topic. Thank you.
Make comment to that because that's one of the focuses of Lincoln is the right thing on the right land, and they've been working on that for some time. Maybe this is an opportunity for them to actually do some of that out, and get some more information into what they're doing.
Thanks, Dan Kraft.
Yeah, there's an opportunity to keep adding to the list. As an alumni as well from Lincoln College, landscape architecture, and some of the things even we're talking about today, in terms of spatial planning, having something in there to look at landscape scale, spatial and catchment planning, to pick up on what we're sort of looking at in terms of our RPS in freshwater management units and catchment-based solutions. And there might be some synergy there in the way the technology for that in a practical sense. Yeah, look, I just wondered if that is possible to just add it to the list and see what comes out of that.
As it's outlined, these are example topic areas, and more than happy to take those up when we form a sphere of group.
Yeah, is there any other questions, Dan?
Just a quick one. Awesome work, love it. Now we've got to Lincoln and UC. There's a third cousin in this educational space in our city, in our region. So, is there any? Yeah, definitely. And they've got a master's in sustainability course there now, which is great. So, is there any conversation or intention to go and reach out to them at some stage and say, hey, look, we've got these going on. Here's some opportunities for you to get hands-on work.
Thank you for the question. We haven't, as of yet, reached out to the other, but we can and we will. It's certainly been in our minds to do so, but we sort of want to get these things done. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I think that's all the questions from Council. Thanks, Tim. So we'll go to the resolution, and John, I'm assuming you want to move it. Good. I'll second it. Nah. You can do it, Councillor Ward. Thank you. True, we are. There you go. We're all. Yeah, and there you go, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Tim, for the work that you put into bringing this forward. It did, as you say, sit there about 2021, but brought it back to the forefront, and along with COVID and a bunch of things, we finally got it there. And I guess my reason for really driving the conversation is that, yes, we do have that memorandum with Canterbury University, or University of Canterbury, and if I sort of facetiously poke my tongue in my cheek, very good at identifying the problems. But the solutions for our rural communities, the solutions for climate change, for nutrients, for de-intensification, or system change, all those things that everyone in this room is interested in, and the further building of production, from my mind, sits within the campus at Lincoln and the research that happens there. So whether it's that page of opportunities that we might, I guess, feed into, it is really the opportunity to continue those conversations with Lincoln University and get the ideas, the thoughts, the system change that we do require to take us forward. And so, slightly different view to my colleague, Councillor, across the room. I am looking for technology. I am looking for innovation. I am looking for a way forward rather than binary stop goes. So, I'm really excited that we have reached this point with Lincoln. And the future for me is rosy. Having sat on the stage in a number of graduations now with Lincoln University students coming across, particularly in the science field, it is just absolutely mind-blowing, the knowledge, the understanding, the thought processes and research that is coming out of institution as you sit and listen to the theses as those doctoral students come through. So thank you, Tim. Thank you to the organisation for progressing this. I look forward to a long relationship.
John, Nick, you want to speak now?
John's probably stolen all my words, but you know, being a past old student, I believe has always been an innovator and a leader in change and looking at new systems and new technology and processes going forward to deal with all of that stuff that's involved in the environmental space. And having said it, graduation this year and watching my own son graduate, it's just amazing the amount of knowledge and enthusiasm that's coming out of that place every year as graduates. And I like to just all the hard work that's being done with this organisation. Great totally. Anyone else would wish to speak to this? Yeah, I'll chip in. Like, yeah, just wanted to acknowledge everybody, especially John and Tim and the team that have done the work here. Yeah, really good to see. And my time at Lincoln was well treasured, and I know that we've got, you know, by my count, maybe almost half, a quarter, a third, maybe of our table has been through Lincoln, so that's pretty awesome. So great to see, and acknowledging too that I know Selwyn District just signed their one maybe last week. I noted that with Lincoln, and I know that Runung also has a pretty maybe an MOU of some description with Lincoln as well. So I know there is tight relationships there across those partners that we have. And just noting that the updated staff recommendation too, that I'm sure that was something the board picked up. Just a slight change, but that's pretty basic. So we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, Gary. Nice one. 8.6, there's another bit of good news here. 8.6, this is the LINZ funding for wilding conifer control. Got Stephen and Carl to the table, so kia ora. And over to you.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. Thank you, Chair. I will hand over to our Biosecurity Manager, Carl Diamond, in just a moment, but you will all recall that our wilding conifer program is a landscape scale restoration program. Canterbury is the largest region in the country in terms of the program. We've got wilding conifers in North Canterbury and South Canterbury and into Manahuna and things. It's a real collaborative project that's been going for a number of years now in partnership with mana whenua landowners and many agencies, and really importantly in partnership with central government. The program, I think over the last decade, has spent over $150 million across Aotearoa, and the most important part of this is ensuring that once you start on these journeys that you continue to keep on top of the progress and the maintenance of the progress that we've been making on these things. So every additional piece of funding helps, and this is an additional unexpected piece. I'll hand over to Carl to talk about what we're going to spend it on.
Good. Through the chair, I'll take the report itself as read, but might skip through to the attachments 8.6.1 and 8.6.2 to provide a little bit of context around them. So the first attachment gives a bit of an overlay of the area and the surrounds. You'll see in the centre there, Wharentosh Station surrounded by Glentana Station to the north, Whakakapi Downs to the south, and Dock Estate to the west, a small strip of LINZ land, and then Whakakapi Lake to the south. To the east, you see Wharentosh Station is split in two by Boundary Stream. The area that we're actually working is south of Boundary Stream to the boundary with Whakakapi Downs. If I skip over to the next attachment, 8.6.2, and provide a little bit more context about the location that we're working. If you look at the boundary, the eastern boundary of the greater block where the Mount Cook Araki Road runs and where blocks A and C meet, you'll see Peter's Lookout, and that gives a pretty good understanding of the location in terms of if you've ever been in that area. There's going to be three work types that we're going to be using, so that's a mix of mulching, boom spraying and ground control works. When you're looking at the second attachment there, the mulching is going to be working through blocks F, A, E, C, and D as far as funding will allow. But mulching, we're planning to all go into plan, actually start on the 21st of this month, so in a couple of days. So we're ready to provide approval as obtained and get going. We're going to be looking at doing boom spraying in blocks FB and 1, and that won't commence until the summer months. There'll be a small amount of ground control work that will happen in FB around waterways to ensure there's no chemical going near those waterways. And the remaining areas on that map will be deferred until a later date, should we be able to obtain funding to enable us to open up these areas. Then I'll open to the question.
Thank you, Carl and Stephen. Any questions? No, looks like we're pretty happy to get on with this. So thanks, Korua. So got a mover, Councillor Ward. Do you want to move that yet? Councillor Swiggs, seconding. Do you want to speak now?
I think this is amazing that we've received this extra funding from LINZ. It is a bad seed source in Mackenzie and a piece of work that's long overdue. So I'm fully in support of it. I'd probably just like to also my fellow councillors that we had a Southern Biosecurity meeting yesterday, and we're probably at the end of this financial year somewhere between 10 and 11 million behind deferred maintenance. So we're always looking for more funding. So it just sort of I guess reiterates the seriousness of the problem there.
Theon, do you want to speak now?
Yeah, I was just going to say something similar. I've been following this quite closely for a while through Nick and others. It's great that this funding's coming through, but I think it's also we can't take the foot off the gas in this space because it is hugely problematic. And when I was reading through this paper, I found it quite ironic that we had a conversation around the natural environment in a solar panel farm versus we're not putting, well, there isn't enough money going into that. I'll start again. I found it ironic around the solar farm and the conversations around the impact of the natural environment by a solar farm and the amount of millions of dollars it will cost to get the consents and all of that sort of stuff for that. And then the limited amount of money that's put into the Golden Pines because of the same issue, the effect on the environment, or the impact that it has on the natural environment. So I think it's kind of ironic sometimes when we have these discussions and especially in the same paper. But really cool that this is coming through, and I really hope that LINZ and others, especially DOC, continue on with the work that they're doing on their land as well, because this is getting out of control.
Peter?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I just want to acknowledge a few people here because I think the work that Councillor Ward's done in his lobbying and his agitating about this has been worthwhile, along with Ross Ivey and Andrew Simpson, and taking Minister Kent for a tour around there to see what the extent of the problem was. And I know that this area of Karakia was really problematic for the Wari Pine Trust, and also Carl, the work that you've done in your knowledge up there, because I think it's really easy if you get in that area to get a good understanding quite quickly from the people that are up there. So well done. I would just endorse what you said, Nicola. I don't think it's over. I was going to do a Winston Churchill, but I just don't like that. This is not the end of the there's no beginning of the end. I think we need to keep at it, and also I know in the forums that I've been in with Chief Executive and other people that we keep at it. So we just need to keep at it. So thank you.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If Scott has covered off, and again, just my thanks to Councillor Ward for his work and everything.
Thanks, John. Ian?
Thank you when you come last, because everyone's saying the same thing. I'd like to recognise John for his work at Lincoln University. I'd like to recognise Nick's work here on behalf of Mackenzie. So, yeah.
A good word in Te Reo, we just say tautoko, which means I support that. So just really support what everyone else has said. Thank you, Nick, for your work, and Carl and the team. And yeah, I got some fond memories of being paddling on this lake quite a bit, lake with Hauraki Bound, and our participants we had on that course, and we use this area quite a lot, so I know it pretty well. And I was there when Tapataia Mahaka, or Peter's Lookout, was opened with the Runanga, Waiho, Arupino and Moiraki and LINZ. Had a bit to do with that, so yeah, it's really cool to see this whole area getting some attention, so thank you. We'll put it up on the board. So moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Swiggs. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, I'm coming back to you, Nick. You go if you want the last say. Sorry.
I just forgot to acknowledge Carol's hard work and also Robin Piper, who's now the Southern League Wildlife Partnership.
Nick, and sorry, I'll come back to you sooner, but thank you for that acknowledgement. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll move on to 8.7. This is on page 149, and that's the variation of the Canterbury Regional Land Transport Plan. And I've got Claire and Jess to come and speak, so thank you.
Kia ora, councillors. Yeah, so this purpose of this paper is to approve a variation to the recently approved Regional Land Transport Plan. It's two variations that have been brought to the Regional Transport Committee from both Christchurch City Council and Whakakapi MTA. So I'll just hand over to Claire just to quickly run you through those variations of the paper in details, and then
Kia ora koutou. So yes, you might be thinking, didn't we just approve the plan? How come we've got a variation already? These are material but not significant changes, and they're basically because the plan includes the work programs and the activities that are actually the sphere of control of the approved organisation, and so it's reflecting some updated work programs. So the plan itself sets the objectives and the investment priorities and the monitoring and the policies and the ranking, and so the RTC has considered whether these work program updates significantly affect that or not, and they don't. They mainly changes to costing, some updated namings for Whakakapi investment advisors to make their job easier, and so the RTC has considered if there is a good reason to vary, and they considered that there was, and they considered if it actually was significant and required consultation, or if it wasn't, and they considered that it wasn't. So then the committee has agreed to recommend it to you to accept without modification, and that's your decision today, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Got it, down. What would be the consequence if we voted against this?
So similar, it's the same piece of legislation that it was for the RLTP, so you can go back and ask for more information, and then the RTC can respond with more information, and then if you don't approve it at that point, then it still gets handed to NZTA, and they take the information that you've provided that you haven't accepted it, but they treat it as approved. So the content really does fit with the RTC.
Yep. So follow up on that. So we can't not approve it, or are we kind of like the meat in the middle in a way? Or like I'm just trying to I'm just trying to really understand. I get it from the action signing it, and it's gone to NZTA and they've already ratified it after the thing. But if we don't approve these, in my head it's like, well, this is our plan, this is the regional plan, and now we're getting dictated by NZTA about what they want. And then it feels like it's actually not our plan, it's the Ministry of Transport plan. So if we don't vote for it, is there any consequence that affects that?
It would send that signal. So it would say, it would send the signal that you as a regional council have not been happy with how the RTC has discharged its duties, but you do also fund it to undertake its duties through your LTP. So it's a bit weird, I know, but yeah, you can absolutely make that decision and send that signal if that's your decision. We're not recommending that, so.
No, can I just add to that too? I think this, so with the timing of the GPS this time around, and NZTA didn't have the involvement in that process as they normally would. The State Highway Investment Program has come about very late in the process, and the refinements to that now is what you're seeing in the variation. So a lot of the costing understandings have come about since those discussions and the timing. Ideally, we would have had this a lot earlier in the piece with the RLTP development, but we didn't. And similarly, the City Council as well, and the other councils that they go through as the road controlling authorities, with their understanding of their own programs and what they put forward. So we've also got the City Council's variation as well. So I understand where you're coming from, and if this is a step in the process, that those responsibilities are essentially delegated to the RPC to do this work on behalf of the council. So working with our local control authorities and as Claire said, the variations, while it does modify some of the numbers and the programs, they are material changes, but they don't warrant the so it is reflecting what they need to be able to deliver their programs of work across the country and to get respect to today's case, the direction for that as well.
And some of the changes actually better align with the feedback we got from workshops. So there's a couple of bridges in the Waimate area that have been called out specifically, which gives that community greater assurance that that work is going to take place. This is something that was sought for in the workshop. And also some of the design around the state highway interventions and some of the concerns being raised around, what does it mean to have all these median barriers and the costings and things like that. So that was part of the information that was provided to the RTC, was that even though it's not in the sphere of control of the RTC, the work program changes to better align with some of the workshop feedback.
David?
I've got a few questions. So this process has gone through RTC enough. Did we kind of jump the gun a little bit?
No, so there's the new draft GPS coming out was unusual. So usually we would get indicative signals and a GPS much earlier in the piece. And so Whakakapi does have to give effect to the GPS. So this time round, with the change in government and the new GPS in the shift, it's not unreasonable to expect that Whakakapi would have to review their work program. So there's nothing in the RLTP that prevents organisations from having to review their work program. Much like you guys have just done your LTP and kind of looked at PT futures and when should it start? Do we do year 1 or year 2? That's the approach we take in Canterbury, is that totally empowered to do that and make those decisions.
The conversation was had with the regional transport committee around the timing of the GPS, and that was a risk in terms of the process and the timings that we had. We committed to the process and having that regional land transport plan in place, and then you have your own long-term plans, and then that finalises the funding there, and then you move through the national land transport plan funding in September. So those timings are something that the government has actually signalled with the GPS as being a challenge right across the country. So that is something that is being looked at, and we'll be waiting for the GPS to come out hopefully at the end of this month or next month, because direction around in that respect, so we can start planning this for our next RLTP, and that's council has to LTP.
And we also had the level of service in your LTP to deliver the RLTP by the 30th of June and submit that to NPCA. And so the timeframes that we ran to achieve that.
In terms of the 90 million decrease Wood and bypass, is that just a costing change from Whakakapi that reduced that project cost?
So that was in relation to the creation of the Roads of National Significance program. And so what Whakakapi has done is that they have moved some of the costings that were in a project space into a coordinated Roads of National Significance space. So it hasn't reduced the cost, it's moved it into a different space for that particular project.
And then final question, just around the Greater Christchurch Mass Rapid Transit, around the implementation cost. We note that there has been approximately $800 million moved outside of this plan, outside of this program. But can you just speak to where there may be some funding within the variation that will continue the MRP work?
Yeah, so there's three things in the plan that progress towards MRT. So the first one is the core service uplift, the route reviews and the core service uplift that ECAN's doing. The other one is the business case, detailed business case development for MRT, which will solidify those implementation costs. And then the third one is changes to the funding mechanisms and advocating for some of those changes and understanding, you know, getting some more assurance around transport funding, really. So those three things are in the plan and all progresses towards the implementation of MRT. And so, yeah, those costs being in year 7 to 10 and then falling into year 11 is that's kind of the shift that's been made. But substantially, the progress is still in the plan.
You'll see in the plan, I think it's like it's PT Futures Stage 2, Greater Washington Stage 2. So while it's not labelled mass rapid transit, which is essentially what we're calling it in our spatial plan work, for the Greater Christchurch Partnership, it is referred to as PT Futures Stage 2, which is, so PT Futures, which is, as you're aware, the program looks at the core investment network, and that's the investment we're putting forward in our LTP. And with match funding from the government, we can advise that program of work. The next stage is the mass rapid transit, which is essentially once you get the frequency and reliability of the service through the core investment network, you can build that mass rapid transit on top. So the timing of the work, operations on our LTP, we commenced the work of our contribution for the mass rapid transit or stage 2 work in year 2, and that'll continue on for about 5 to 6 years. The work before we then the protection of the corridor, all the investigative work, all of that type of thing, design, etc., to then take us into implementation.
Just a follow-up question, I think it's a really important point because it does look a bit the way it's explained, it's like I was not doing that anymore. So I think it was a really good question from Councillor Davies and a good answer to and I just think it's really important that we, just as it can be taken out, if the business case is done in the next few years, it could be put back in, right? With another variation, once we know the actual cost of implementation, right? That's a possibility. I'm not saying it will be, but that's a possibility, right?
Yes, well, there will be a 2027 plan. So we'll do another 3 years work and then we'll have the 2027 plan and the picture will be clearer and reflects that period.
Fair answer. Yeah, no.
On number 23, and it really just sort of covers off the engagement with Māori. So, in looking at this, because there was nothing material actually different from the RLTP, so is that just taken for granted that you need to actually engage with Māori anymore because of that, and yet we're talking about the church, we're talking about the PCS. So what is I mean, is there a sense of confidence in the fact that Māori would actually agree with this because they actually had no material kind of input or request of changes actually to the RLTP?
Yeah, so this was the question I put to NZTA when putting the papers together. I put it to both City Council and to NZTA, and I specifically asked them to advise me on the approach that they had taken to Māori engagement so that we could provide that advice. The approach NZTA takes to their Māori engagement is to rely on other people doing the Māori engagement, essentially. So, but because the changes were then not significantly different, that didn't kind of trigger requirements to then go and do more engagement. So I don't know if that satisfies what you're looking for, but yeah, I mean,
Actually, because you're not NZTA, and thank you for actually approaching it. But it seems to me that NZTA has actually transferred their responsibility to someone else when it comes to engagement with market.
I wouldn't like to speak on behalf of NZTA.
Yeah. And just a note on point 23 there, Runanga Naito has a couple of macrons on the U and Runanga on the A and Naito. So just noting that. We're normally pretty good at it, but we just haven't done it. Is there any other questions for Claire and Jess? No, it doesn't look like it. Thanks guys. Thanks for your answers. Thanks for your work. And so Peter, you would like to move? Yep, cool. And Grant would like to second. Cool. So we've got the resolutions on the screen in front of us, quite a few down to number 6. So you'll know there's a whole lot of noting ones, and then number 5 is the approving one, and then number 6 is delegating any minor errors to be made by the Chief Executive. So it's Councillor Scott is the mover. Yeah, Councillor Scott and Councillor Edge as seconder. So I'll hand over to you, Peter, if you want to open up.
I've just got a couple of comments to make. One is the fact that this is just probably one of the most judicious processes that we go through with the regional land transport plan in place, and the work that's done by ATA across Canterbury and the staff, the transport officers group, in consideration of Whakatau and how we get to what I know. I think this though does for me highlight the fact that that the MRT piece that we talk about now needs to get lifted out and have a life of its own. I think that it's clearly infrastructure that's a requirement of Christchurch. I think that we get confused by having it into service and infrastructure delivery. I think that after being with the minister last week, there was a clear indication that some of these things we really just need to get on and get done. If these things sit and there's no disrespect to staff who are involved in this at all, but if these things sometimes do sit within a regional land transport plan, they have a regional land transport plan life that they assume through business cases and other things, and their funding is easily interfered with by people that haven't got the same desire that councillors may have to want to get these things done. So in this instance, I do support this great, but my comment would be, I think we need to pay attention to MRT, and I think we need to do something seriously about it in the next couple of months to make sure that we can lift it out of where it is and get on and get some stuff done.
Thanks, Peter. Grant, you want to speak?
Yeah, look, we do need to adopt this. This is part of a process that's part of the system in terms of the ability for NZTA and other members of Canterbury Regional Transport Committee to make some variations after the review process. What we did on the 7th of May was adopt the plan. That plan then goes back for some review to various parties, and as a result of that, both NZTA and the Christchurch City Council just reworked their systems just to take account of new information that their traffic management people came up with. And for NZTA, it was to do with, and it's written there on page 150, item 9, to reflect the NZTA's state highway program activities, which came up post that. And in terms of the Christchurch City, there's a reworking of how they consider their priorities going forward. So it's not all it is. It's just a reworking of the priorities for those particular groups. And in terms of NZTA, it's aligning themselves with the GPS and the activity classes that have been reformulated with government. It's certainly something that I support.
And in terms of the MRT discussion that we've just been having, remember too that the MRT was a focal point for the development of the spatial plan, the Greater Christchurch spatial plan. It sits within that spatial plan. Whakakapi, NZTA were a part of that spatial plan committee, Greater Christchurch committee. So, you know, it's an integral part of the urban development transportation program. And who knows, we might have the government, if they're interested in reworking things, maybe it's a fast track opportunity to kickstart that whole MRT process a little bit more. But yeah, look, I think certainly encourage councillors to adopt this, to keep it going. I don't think we're in a position to not do this, as it keeps the momentum going and addresses the priorities that we have already set within our long-term plan.
Thanks, Brad. Theo? I kind of feel like you were giving me the steer-eye there, Councillor. I was like, oh no, because I do have a different view on this, and I will be voting against it because I don't agree with that sort of stuff, that statement. And I actually cast my mind back to the long-term plan deliberations, and Councillor Scott was talking about we've got to have it in, we've got to send this clear steer to the government to say if it's in, we're prioritising this. If it's not in, we're not going to be sending that signal to the government or to any of our partners to say that we're taking this serious. And I'm going to start an argument with you now. I'm not saying an argument, but this is my point. Is I don't agree with the mass rapid transit moving outside of that 10 years. I think it sends the wrong signal, personally. We've spent so much time, so much money, so much effort. I don't even mind at the start of the implementation of year 10. But I believe it should be in there. That's just a fundamental belief that I have, and I don't like this process. It's antiquated. I don't think it's fit for purpose, and I think we're getting the runaround by agencies leading us down the garden path. And who's running this region? Is it Ministry of Transport, or is it us, or is it the elected members? I sometimes don't know. I also fundamentally disagree with the other point in point 17, reducing the cost of the state highway safety improvements from approximately $400 million to $68 million over 2 years. That to me is bad, and I actually think that is more than just a small change. I think that's quite a fundamental change in my opinion. It's a very fundamental change in language of the direction that this regional transport plan is potentially taking for our region. And I understand, and that's why I asked that question, and I do understand the trickiness of this system and this process puts you in as a staff. So it's nothing about your work, and you have done great work on this, but as a regional councillor, looking at this, I can't support it with those two parts. So I won't be voting for this. Thanks, Dion. Go. Yeah, I do support this. I think there's something to note there with the MRT is that the full implementation cost, we're looking at the billions. That wouldn't be in the plan anyway. So the next stage of implementation may have been kicked out a bit, but we know that this planning phase is in there, albeit with a different name. And so I'm happy to support this while we go through the group protection around possible district plan changes, and so on and so forth. And my final point, I'd like to support the CCC variation around the Pages Road bridge renewal. This has been some great work done by elected members at community board level, including Chair Paul McMahon of the community board, the Wi-Fi community board, Councillor Celeste Donovan, and also Mayor Phil Major, also because he has also picked up the strategic importance of that bridge, particularly with the civil defence lenses. So it's very pleasing to see the $50-odd million there over the next 5 to 10 years. So thank you. Any other people wishing to speak to this? No? I'll go back to you, Councillor Scott. Last day, do you want the last say? You happy? Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? On that noted down. Cool, thank you.
Sorry, it was an I there. Sorry.
Right, thank you, Councillor Robinson.
Sorry, I'm having huge problems with my computer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're on to the Chair's report. That's page 159. Yeah, just acknowledge the work there again on that last matter. Lots of, and good point, Dion, I think, but also good to move on as well. So thank you. So the Chair's report covers a few things. You'll note there on page 159, a bit of commentary on our long-term plan, of course, and our deliberations. And of course, we've got our meeting next Wednesday to receive the final long-term plan and hopefully approve that, as well as the audit and all that stuff. The budget announcement, and we've acknowledged numerous times now the good fortune we had through that around the river resilience and flood money and the 3 projects they got funded, but obviously the next phase of that we're looking forward to as well. Lots of meetings last week with ministers, and also we met with MP Andy Foster on the 6th of June as well. So yeah, and thanks to the other councillors that attended those with me and the other mayors of Canterbury. You'll note those meetings there, and you know, we managed to get some really good points across, I think, in all of those meetings to those ministers, in particular Minister Bishop in regards to the RM reforms. You also note on page 194 our letter, our most recent letter to Minister Bishop, which reinforced the 10 points that we'd also raised on the 5th of April around the reforms and some of those really important things that we think should be carried forward in the next phase of that. And so I thought we got them across well. And you'll also note on page 163 that our LGNZ 4-monthly report, that's there for everyone's information. And also the letters that have gone out recently, like I mentioned, the supplementary letter to Minister Bishop on the RM reforms, the Minister on PT, the letter on PT advocacy that was sent to Christchurch and Canterbury mayors that we are following up with. We've had good response from the mayors on that, and so we will be sending that further letter to the Minister on that, and also the co-signing of the letter around Māori wards. I think I got called an activist around that actually, or we all did. Everyone who signed, they got called an activist in Parliament, evidently. T-shirts are getting ordered and stuff. But I did forward that around our councillors. There was mixed views on it, but I felt that there was a majority of support for that. And the key thing really why I supported that is because I believe that it is a local decision for local democratically elected councillors to make. And in the rep review that we do for every second term, we don't have what's it called? A referendum on any other matter in the rep review. So I think it's a good thing that councillors should make those decisions, and that's why I supported that. So any questions on the Chair's report? All good? Yep, you got a comment? Yep, Jane, and then we'll go to...
Thank you, Chair, for the work that you've done. My probably thing is probably more future focus. I'm not going to take questions about what are some of the big things. You've met the ministers and other things. So from out of that, what some of the things you see for?
Obviously, the biggest thing for me coming up is just implementing the long-term plan, actually getting that sorted next week. I think the RM reform work is pretty critical, but I agree with Peter too about the method, the MRT work. I think that's critical. We've obviously got a bunch of letters we are following up with on fires and the NES forestry. So there's so much that we're doing across the board, as well as our ongoing work around our committees and getting them sorted, and making the long-term thing. So that's probably where mine's at. Got it.
Yeah, just a comment, and this is certainly no reflection on the acting chair. I've got to say, huge amount of work, and I totally for you in the work that you've been doing. But I do want to just reflect on the fact that this is the second council meeting where Chair Scott has stood down. I see we have another one next week, which I can't see a resolution by then. That'll be the third one. I do hope that there is some resolution in the near coming future one way or the other. Thank you. Kia ora.
Thanks, Greg. Any other comments, questions? Yep. No.
Kia ora, Greg. I just want to vocal for the comments by Councillor Cranwell. And also, just a question. So, with the meetings that you've had with the various ministers that you've profiled in your report, in your view, I mean, understanding that they're fairly new in their portfolios, and with you, particularly around your environmental career, your experience actually here at regional council, do you think that they are actually they do understand their portfolio?
Didn't really get to that. I don't think. Look, remember that most of them were with the Mayoral Forum or other Canterbury mayors, so we weren't leading them on our own. The one that we were was the Minister Bishop meeting, which Ian and Peter also came to. Look, I thought they were really good discussions. I mean, part of those meetings are about us getting some of our points across in terms of the work programs that we want to see progressed, but also funding, obviously, that we would like to see, and also hearing what they're thinking. And I thought in all of those meetings we got good feedback. We got some good points across, but also good feedback from the ministers in terms of where they're at. And I thought the meeting with Minister Bishop was really good. I thought we got some really good points across in terms of some of the key issues that we're dealing with. I mean, Section 107.70 came up. We also dealt with the Braided Rivers definition and those 10 points with RM reform. So I thought we got a lot of good stuff, and I thought that his brain was clicking over actually when we were saying those things, and he even turned to his officials at some point and said, have we got that? Are we on to that point? And so I thought that was really good. So I thought that was a good meeting. I'll go to Councillor Robinson online then to you. Councillor Robinson?
Yep. Can you hear me okay? Sorry.
Yep.
No, thanks for that. And I agree. And with what actually in particular Councillor Burns has mentioned too, it is timely that we're getting, some sort of update. My just comment, I wouldn't mind to say for your chair's report on regards to the RM reforms, I was, quite clearly one of the ones who didn't really still like for anything to go back to ministers regarding that and our position. I understand that we have issues on the go. However, I still feel that pushing some of the agenda on RM reforms is, comes with its own issues, and I won't delve into it. I just wanted to note that I was quite opposed to probably sending backup letters and things like that. Just wanted it on the record that I don't think that's the way to go. But however, I want to applaud a lot of work in the background, but just my position stands. Thank you.
Good, Genevieve. I think a really important thing to note around the RM reforms is that there was a previous RM reform that resulted in the Natural Built Environment Act, and there were some really good things in that, and that's what we're trying to highlight with the current government, is that don't throw all the baby out the bathwater, because there's some good things that came from that. In particular, just one example that I raised before with the Braided River definition. And so I think we're trying really hard to make sure that the new minister and the government actually hopefully pick up on some of those things that we all worked on together, not just as a council, but across the country with other regional councils and other councils. So just trying to emphasise those points, even though, take your point too.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and thank you. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ian.
I just wanted to agree with your comments about the usefulness of the meeting with Chris Bishop. I thought it was a good meeting. I hope it will be useful, but it does raise an issue which is not related really, but the restructuring committees and everything else. The chairs of the existing committees are not going to meet with they still the chairs of those committees, or are they, have they been, has that been disposed of with the committee? So do we, it's a role of champions, and you know, yeah.
Can't answer that completely, but I think we've got our meeting tomorrow to discuss that, the workshop tomorrow, to discuss where we take it next. And we have talked about things like leaders, champions, working groups, etc. So, yeah.
In the interim, do we assume we are still the champions of those responsibilities of those, or do we not?
I'm okay with that, yeah. Yeah. All good? Yep, Dion.
Am I able to talk about the LGNZ report? Oh yeah, cool. I mean, deep inside the LGNZ report, something that really I'm quite hot on is the elected members' safety and security. I think I may have heard some talk about it, but I really just want to put out there that 74% of the people from the sector have faced aggressive, abusive or offensive behaviour in public meetings. And 33% of them, that's 1 in every 3, is getting at like day-to-day activities like shopping, collecting children from school. On Friday, I spoke to a young mayor of a simple North Island community. She is facing a situation where somebody in an unmarked a car with no taken off the number plates is following her kids around. You know, we're facing some real challenges in our country and other and stuff that we have to face. You know, I've had some pretty challenging times, and I think a lot of us are facing some pretty interesting things. And I actually think this needs to be brought up a little bit higher. It's good that it's in here, and you also note in that report that I've been elected into the Young Elected Members Committee, even though I don't feel young anymore, I still am. In a local government sense, under 40, we've only got what 9 or 10% of elected members in New Zealand are over 40, which is quite amazing in itself. Yeah, so we're getting on to doing some interesting work in that space on this security, because it is stopping younger people from wanting to become elected members. I mean, we've got some amazing opportunities in this local government space, but people are seeing this sort of stuff. I mean, when you see some of the virtual online, why would the hell would you want to put yourself forward for this role? So, you know, I don't know the answer to this, and I think there needs to be a collective approach. I really wanted to raise it because it is good that this is before. But I also want to acknowledge that it's not just elected members that are facing this as well. Some of our staff in this organisation are facing some same things, and we also as governments need to deal with that when we're thinking about our own security and safety and all these things. For people like our children. But we as a country have to do better. This is getting beyond it. Yeah, and I think it is part of our AFRC work that we're doing, program of work on key risks. So it is noted in there, I know, but I agree. It's not great, and we should do more. So something maybe to keep talking to government about as well. Any other questions, comments? All good. Well, we'll put the resolution that's there, and I'll move it that the council receives the chair's report. Wow, that's appreciated. Any seconder? Thank you, John. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. Yes. Okay, we're going to move into public excluded now. That's the next part of our meeting, just before lunch, and then we'll have lunch shortly. I still think it's worth it to get into it, and then we can just adjourn in public excluded. Yeah. So firstly, do I need a resolution just to go to public excluded? That's on the board there, and just the note things.
I'll move it if you want.
Right. So we've got Jan and Nick are moving it. So Councillor Cranwell, Councillor Ward. All those in favour, please say aye. And any against? Carried. Thank you. So we'll just wait for those that need to leave to leave. Cool. That's recorded again. So we're back to the public meeting. The next meeting is our council meeting next Wednesday, 26th of June, which is largely about the LTP. And I'll hand it to Councillor Cranwell.
Kia tātou nei ono nei kia koutou I tēnei wā, mi ati kia koe e te tūmaki ka whakahaere tēnei hui, tēnei rā, e rawe o mahi whakahaere ai tātou katoa rewa tēnā. Koutou katoa, mo te o koutou whakaaro, mo te whiki kōrero, e pānanga mahi mo te kaunei o tai au ki waika no rewa tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa, hei Whakakapi te hui nei, ka tāka nei Karakia, unuhia. Unuhia kuhu tapu nui o tāne. Te wāti, te māma, te kākau, tinana, te wairua, te kiara taka tū, koe rā e roko o Pakiriaki ki ruka ki a tīna, au ni e hui e, rā e ki e.